Hi, I'm Ali X. I'm a dreamer. I'm a landed illegal immigrant here in Mexico, and I have a very interesting perspective on what I see here, you know. Being an international DJ gigolo for all the years I have been, I think maybe, along with the Irish guy Ian, if we can ever find this guy and film him, he can give you a colonial, Britannical perspective on this whole swarthy Mexican thing that's going on here, you know. Mexico's, it's very interesting scene here because I was not aware of what was happening, except that, like, my first experience with the electronic scene in Mexico was back in the 90s when my friends would go down to these psychedelic trance raves in Mexico and come back to Canada with these stories about like how cool of a big scene it was there. And they would bring back their like Chiva and DMT and all these crazy cool things from Mexico, and there's like a trade going of American psychedelics and Canadian shit. But then, much later, let's put all that aside because like trance rave, like trance go away, you know. There's a producer named Miho, and when I was living in Italy, dating the ex-girlfriend of this guy Rod had, who was friends with Rodion, who's friends with Miho, I got introduced to this producer Miho, who was my first exposure to Mexican electronica after Raballero, because he's the most famous like godfather of like underground Mexican shit that everyone copies. But Miho is like super producer, and when I actually had a chance to come here and stay here, I was like, well, if this is kind of cool underground thing going on here, that's like, they've taken pieces of all the shit that I was exposed to in Europe and pieced it together into their own kind of thing. And their little chimichurri of Mexican Tex-Mex cocktail that they have, for some reason, people around the world, they like it because it is innocent and it kind of has this like unique newness to it. It's not too jaded yet. So people are experimenting and coming up with kind of different combinations of things. All these little pieces that you can, it's like, it's not so different from a place like Canada or maybe Norway or not Europe, but like when you're isolated in your own spot and your only connection to the rest of the scene is the internet, then you're not actually there, so you're not influenced too much by the culture, but by just the product that the culture produces. And it's cool because like in these places where you're an observer, you just pick and choose the best little pieces that relate to you and your own like circumstance and your own culture, and you can make your own unique kind of recipe out of these ingredients that are available all around the world, you know. And you find this in different little places, but Mexico, being a creative country and like, you know, full of expression, that they have their own, they created their own thing that is very unique, and people now realize, like, it's interesting because in the 2 years that I've been here, more and more attention is becoming to this scene here, and it's nice. And I would think of myself as a prophet that realized I land here like before this all was too hip, you know. So I'm not just following the herd. Let's say one of my earliest influences was Carlos Castaneda with the books of Don Juan and stuff, you know. And I heard about peyote more than any Canadian little kid. You know, I was ripe and ready to experience my spirit journey and quest and, you know, vision quest and stuff. And like my early influences were literary and cinematic, I would say. Like William S. Burroughs and Tom Wolfe and Ken Kesey. And then going on into like, when I was younger, I really grew up with kind of psychedelic rock was really, and LSD was all kind of when I was a teenager in the 90s in Canada. And then this rave thing happened, and what really changed, like, you know, I used to listen to Depeche Mode and some cool like Nitzareb and this electronic stuff. But the rave scene came to Canada at some point when I was just the right age, maybe 15 years old, and Richie Houghton and people from Detroit, where I grew up very close to the border of America near Detroit. A lot of Detroit techno, and a lot of that kind of stuff was my early influences. Richie Houghton, Jeff Mills, and people like Stacy Pullen and Terry Mullen. As far as the electronic stuff goes, and then just music in general, everything. I love everything I could be exposed to. I appreciate again, the pick and choose the ingredients that you like, you know, to take the pieces of things I like. Also, My Bloody Valentine for the sonic art kind of thing, and having music be not just music, but be an art. My Bloody Valentine and shoegaze kind of music. And it combines with the Manchester stuff in the rave scene, like Happy Mondays and New Order and stuff like that. I come from a smaller city outside of the big city. In Canada, Toronto is the biggest city. And I come from 1 hour outside there, and it was a factory town. It was a steel city, very techno, very industrial, because it was like based on industry. And when I finally went to Toronto, it was like the big city, and ever since then I've been addicted to big cities. I went to London, Amsterdam, Milano, Mexico City. Like, I love it. It's the big city, and it's like as much as you could be isolated somewhere beautiful and have beautiful nature, beautiful beach, all that shit. No, good luck. Get you internet connection. I still have something to express. If you want to broadcast your ideas, you have to do it from somewhere like a city, a big international hub like Mexico City. Any big place, London, Toronto, even, that can have so many people coming internationally and coming through, and it's, if you don't want to stagnate and be too isolated. As much as I'm an isolationist and want my own ideas not to be infiltrated and disturbed by like all this other stimuli, but I love being in a big city, and that's actually part of the reason why I stay in Mexico City, because it's the biggest city in the world. And when people sleep, the nice thing about big cities is people go to sleep, and you can have all that psychic energy. 25 million people, just sleeping, being like lemon, kind of like dumbass sleepers, wake up and go to your job. All that dream energy. 25 million people all fucking sleeping off their taco hangover. Well, you got Jesus in the middle there. You got some fucking sacrifice, blood burning something. You got a rocket spaceship on the other side there. But it's nice that whole thing broke free of the classical hippie kind of perspective of it, And originally we were introduced to this kind of Mexican psychedelia through hippie, kind of the American hippies that came here, and writers and stuff that were, But I think that those kind of psychedelic powers can be channeled depending on your generation and your perspective on things. So like kids that are younger and didn't grow up with this kind of, they don't have a spirit guide, a proper shaman anymore or something. So they've broken away, and they use this thing and they find their own crazy new reality, And that's what I would hear in the Mexican techno, is that they take the classical elements and then recombine them in a new way with a new perspective of the world. They're much more open-minded because they've traveled more, they've seen more. Everyone has seen more at this point. You can travel just on your computer. So these psychedelic kind of things, I think, affect us in a new way. They're always needed, Generation after generation, even though they were lost for a long time, they always come back, find their way back into our life. And I think the desert culture of like peyote and floripundia and stuff is, you have to have a certain tolerance to handle it. And if you can absorb that thing and realize like it gets into you like almost like a viral kind of thing, and it's part of your DNA afterwards. You don't need to keep doing peyote. Like once you've had that experience, you keep it in your soul forever, and then it represents in your art. You know what I don't like? I like old school is cool, but like don't be like old school. Like I play vinyls and fucking old school. Like
no, but only your perspective.
Yeah, I had to be there. It's like, do you know what fucking napalm smells like in the morning on the fucking Gulf of Tonkin? Of course you don't know. You weren't fucking there, man. Like, you had to be there. Much better. Yeah. The older I get, the better I was. The older I get, the better things were. It's like, you want to go raving? Get a time fucking machine. Really. It's just right now is the echo of the good shit. Like when the bomb drops, and then 20 years later, like still the echoes. But right now the echoes are getting quiet, and the echoes are like, so something is going to come and drop up another bomb, and then that'll be like, shh. I'm like the Chicago School of Economics. I just want to like, you want a free market, laissez-faire, like let's do it. And you want to experiment with economics and see if, do we really need a dictatorship to impose these strict austerity cuts and shit? Like my thing is I come here like Friedman from the School of Chicago, and try to see if my formula works. It's like, you got this messed up economy here. You got to say, well, let's privatize everything, the fucking oil, the resources. You want to go to school? You got to have a fucking certificate. And then let's have like might is right. The evolution of music, the evolution of culture. It's like the people want to hear. Right now, we have a surplus. What we need is we need to pull back and keep the junkings wanting more. You know, you keep the people. When's your next hit? No, you want to wait 12 hours, motherfucker. You sweating yet? No. Right now, there's too much, too fast, low quality. You know, you want high quality shit. Bring on the earthquakes and the fucking tremblors and shit, and fucking let's reduce the numbers. And, you know, like I said, if the next big earthquake, I will die with my shit up here, because this is worth more than me. I come from an alien place with this technology of the future, you know, from 20 years ago in the future, in the reality, back when I used to live in the real world, you know. Come here with this shit. This is like the seed bank of analog technology in Mexico, you know. Maybe me and a couple other dudes are keeping it real. It's interesting because, like, you know, I tried so many different formulas of living and existing in this world and coexisting with people and coexisting with the fucking reality that's imposed on me. You know, I didn't choose this reality. If I could choose my own reality, like, I'd be Adolf fucking Hitler, you know, like, who the fuck knows? No one wants me to choose my own reality. So, having to have a democracy with a group communal hypnosis reality, the way I live is I came here to Mexico to run away. You know, I'm a fucking fugitive from the reality here. That's another great thing. Oh, sorry, did you run someone over drunk and you're smoking crack in your car? Oh, 500 pesos. You know, there's something about, like, you know, I want to live in a state of suspended reality, and Mexico provides that for me. You know, I think it provides it for Mexicans too. They go out and they don't want to deal with Canadian cops. You know, like. No one wants to deal with a strict, harsh authoritarian. Authoritarian. I'll just take a stab at authoritarian kind of dictatorship, you know, where you turn the corner, oops, beep, 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 500 Canadian, you know, your fucking insurance. No, Mexico provides, like, I can actually breathe here. Like I was saying, the psychic people go to sleep. You can. You know, and I think that's part of the whole psychedelic thing. The shamans and the people, while the rest of the normal people are sleeping, if you didn't drink the shaman's urine, you're sleeping too. And then at night, the dreams come and you're manipulating people's dreams and you're creating your own crazy fantasy, and you can do that here because it's an open Carta Blanca, you know? Yeah, that's what it is here. You can want to start again, and Mexico welcomes, as long as you have good ideas. And if you're a piece of shit, no, escarpe. But if you have something to bring to the table, they will welcome you here. It doesn't matter, don't speak Spanish, I lived here 2 years. It doesn't matter, they still understand what I'm trying to get at. And I understand them, you know?